involvement in the industry came about in a roundabout way. I never planned to make cannabis my life's work. However, in 2010, after working in the legislature for 9 years, I was appointed to the Gaming Commission. And the Gaming Commission is where I was working and with card rooms and tribal casinos for 7 years there. And when I left there, I opened my own business called California Cannabis Advisors, which assists card rooms with navigating and maneuvering through the regulatory framework in California. The time that I opened California Gaming Advisors coincided with the passage of Prop 64 in 2016, which legalized adult use cannabis for Californians. And that, interestingly enough, is where my interest came. Those two, gaming interests in cannabis, intersected because the Prop 64 was written off the Gambling Control Act. So it seemed like a perfect fit for me to work with other businesses in a similar way that I do with gaming licensees, as far as regulations, compliance issues, licensing, and the legislature. I guess the biggest change would be, coming out from being a behind-the-scenes black market industry to becoming a legitimate industry that has to go through licensing and answer to the state and pay the state taxes, and all of that comes attendant with that. That has been the biggest change for the industry that's still happening, honestly. I think that there's been a change to professionalize the industry, which has been important. You see a concerted effort on the part of entrepreneurs to get away from the 420, targeting the younger generation. All those references from times past and moving towards hey, this is a legitimate industry that wants to be a player and is taken seriously by, other industries and the government. So that I would say is the biggest industry change that I've seen since 2016. Some of the forecasts have been pretty promising. While we haven't had the robust numbers that we envisioned originally when it was legalized in 2016, we finally do have an increase. We are no longer losing sales, but we do have a huge black market still. And so the forecasted economy in 2024, so that would be 4 years really, but around that same time, is that the legal sales will finally take the place and overcome those of the black market illegal sales. So that, I think, is a huge change that will hopefully come to fruition by that time. And then hopefully that is buoyed by the federal government making some changes as far as either the classification, and if not that, some options that would open up banking possibilities for businesses. As much as California, or any state for that matter, wants to regulate and legalize and legitimize the industry, there's always that hindrance that happens from the Schedule 1 classification at the federal level. So those roadblocks, most importantly, and probably what everybody understands to be, is the issue of banking, the availability of services that can be provided. There's also been some regulatory roadblocks as far as getting licenses. There's a lot of local governments. There was local control built into Prop 64, which allowed for the local jurisdictions to prohibit or severely limit activities in their jurisdictions. And so while there aren't any caps on the number of licenses at the state level, you have to have a local license in order to get a state license. So if the locals are prohibiting those licenses from happening and for people to be able to get them, then that results in scarcity in the marketplace and the rise of the black market. That, combined with the tax issue, which is the major issue as well, and how much these businesses are being taxed, have been pretty significant barriers. People and the entities, local governments especially, who will use this as a catalyst to prohibit it or to further restrict the ability to have licenses, which is unfortunate because it's the opposite effect. If you don't allow something to be available, that encourages the black market. So while that has been unfortunate, I think that perhaps the press hasn't done the best job in making it known that it was the black market distributors, the people who are not licensed. Those exclusively were the operators where those vaping cartridges were found to be in the market, because they're not subject to the strict testing guidelines that California licensees are subject to. Hopefully, this will shine a light on the importance of enforcement actions in the state, because I think a lot of legitimate operators, the people who take the time to go through the arduous licensing process and to pay the steep taxes, they are saying, what is the benefit for me to be doing this, in the sunshine and out in the open, when the black market is able to thrive and there isn't any enforcement either at the local or state level. So I think that has spurred action on both the state and local levels to begin enforcement actions. It depends on what their particular interest is. Like if you were focusing on something like I do, I'm not necessarily a plant-touching business. I am an ancillary business in that I provide support services to those in the industry, and those support services I provide have to do with state regulation and licensing. So whatever your niche may be, you need to follow that path of information. So I get a lot of my information, I subscribe, and I attend meetings from the Bureau of Cannabis Control on a regular basis. I go to different conferences when they're able, and there's always a conference available, to learn more about the innovations in the industry and what people are facing, the challenges that people are facing, and also getting involved on a local government level, just understanding what the beat is, what people's feelings are locally with regard to cannabis. So using all of those resources, and of course networking as much as you can with other people who have done it successfully, have really been, I think, the best options for people looking to get involved in the industry.